A rocket ship breaking through a red financial gravity layer into a green wealth-building zone. On one side, a heavy anchor labeled debt, bills. On the other side, a glowing 100K milestone. Charlie Munger famously said that the first $100,000 is a total nightmare. But once you reach it, something changes. Your money starts working harder than you do. In this video, I'll show you the technical and psychological roadmap to reach that first six figures. Because if you don't build this foundation, you risk spending your life as a financial hostage to your boss, your bills, and your own lifestyle. By the end, you'll know exactly how to track your path to financial escape velocity. Most people look at a $100,000 net worth and think it is simply 10 steps of $10,000. But that is not how the math works. The journey from zero to your first $100,000 is not linear. It is brutal in the beginning, slow in the middle, and then suddenly momentum starts to appear. At $0, every single cent has to come from your own discipline, your paycheck, your restraint, your ability to say no when everyone else is saying yes. You are fighting financial gravity, and that gravity is strong. It looks like a $700 car payment. It looks like $9,000 in credit card debt. It looks like rent, insurance, subscriptions, emergencies, lifestyle inflation, and the constant pressure to appear more successful than you actually are. At zero, you are not building wealth yet. You are playing defense. One flat tire, one medical bill, one check engine light, and suddenly your entire financial life is under pressure. But as you move closer to $100,000, the physics of money begins to change. You stop being only a worker. You start becoming an owner. Your money begins producing more money. Your investments begin contributing. Your decisions begin compounding. And eventually, you reach a point where wealth stops feeling impossible and starts becoming inevitable. That point is what I call financial escape velocity. In this video, we are breaking the journey into 6 phases. The first $10,000 mindset shift, eliminating wealth leeches. The $20,000 turning point, the smartest order to invest, the house poor trap, and finally, the moment you reach $100,000. Let's start with why the first $10,000 may be the hardest, and most important, part of the entire journey. The first milestone is not $100,000. It is $10,000. Because $10,000 is the point where your financial life begins to feel different. Not perfect, not luxurious, but different. At $0, a $600 car repair feels like a crisis. It can go on a credit card, trigger interest, create stress, and force you to spend the next several months digging yourself out. But with $10,000 saved or invested, that same $600 repair becomes annoying, not life-altering. That is a massive psychological shift. This is where panic starts turning into control. And control matters because money is not just math. It is emotional stability. It is decision-making power. It is the ability to respond instead of react. When you are constantly broke, your brain operates in survival mode. You make short-term decisions because you are under short-term pressure. But once you create even a small financial buffer, your thinking changes. You can plan, you can negotiate, you can take calculated risks, you can stop making decisions from fear. That is why the first $10,000 is so powerful. It is not just money, it is proof. Proof that you can save. Proof that you can resist lifestyle inflation. Proof that you are capable of becoming someone who builds wealth instead of constantly chasing relief. And once you prove that to yourself, the game changes. Now, before you can build wealth aggressively, you need to stop the financial bleeding. Because many people are trying to invest while their financial life is being quietly drained by what I call wealth leeches. The 2 biggest examples are high-interest debt and oversized car payments. Let's start with credit cards. If you are paying 22% interest on credit card debt while trying to earn 7% in the stock market, the math is working against you. That is not a wealth-building strategy. That is financial self-sabotage. You cannot outinvest high-interest debt. The guaranteed loss is larger than the potential gain. So before you get excited about index funds, crypto, real estate, or the next big opportunity, you need to ask a simple question. Are you carrying debt that is mathematically destroying your progress? because every dollar going toward high-interest debt is a dollar that cannot compound for your future. Then there is the car payment. A $700 monthly car payment may feel normal today, but normal is often expensive. That is $8,400 per year. Over 7 years, that is nearly $59,000 in payments before you even consider insurance, maintenance, fuel, depreciation, and the opportunity cost of not investing that money. And if that money had been invested instead, the long-term difference could easily approach $70,000 or more. So here is the real question. If you did not have that $700 car payment, how much faster would you reach $100,000? For many people, the answer is years faster. This is why the path to wealth is not only about earning more, it is also about removing the anchors that keep you from moving. Because you cannot reach escape velocity while dragging financial dead weight behind you. Once you reach around $20,000, something important happens. You begin to gain walking away money. This does not mean you are rich. It means you are no longer completely trapped. If your boss disrespects you, you have options. If your job becomes toxic, you have time. If an emergency happens, you have a cushion. If an opportunity appears, you can actually consider it. That is powerful because the person with no savings has to accept whatever terms life gives them. But the person with $20,000 has leverage. And leverage changes behavior. You negotiate differently. You spend differently. You think differently. You stop accepting every bad deal out of desperation. This is also where compounding begins to make its first noticeable appearance. The first $20,000 may take a long time because most of it comes directly from your savings. But the next $20,000 usually comes faster. Why? Because now your money is beginning to participate. Even modest investment growth starts helping. Your contributions are still doing most of the work, but the portfolio is no longer sitting still. It is moving with you. However, this is also where many people make a dangerous mistake. They hit $20,000 or $30,000, feel successful for the first time, and immediately upgrade their lifestyle. They buy the $50,000 truck. They move into the luxury apartment. They start justifying expensive vacations. They tell themselves, "I deserve it." And just like that, they reset the clock. This is the trap. The first sign of progress is often when discipline becomes most important. Because if you cannot protect the first $20,000, you will struggle to reach the first $100,000. The goal is not to look wealthy. The goal is to become free. Now let's talk about sequence. Because building wealth is not just about doing the right things. It is about doing them in the right order. Here is a simple hierarchy. First, build a small starter emergency fund, around $1,000 to $2,000. This is not your full safety net. It is your financial shock absorber. It keeps minor emergencies from turning into credit card debt. Second, contribute enough to your employer retirement plan to get the full match. If your employer offers a match and you are not taking it, you are leaving guaranteed money on the table. Third, attack high-interest debt. Again, if your credit card is charging 20% or more, paying it off is one of the best returns you can get because it is guaranteed. Fourth, begin funding tax-advantaged accounts like an IRA. These accounts give your money better conditions to grow because taxes are one of the biggest long-term drags on wealth. Fifth, consider an HSA if you are eligible. The health savings account is one of the most powerful retirement tools because it can offer a triple tax advantage. You may get a tax deduction when you contribute. Your money can grow tax-free, and withdrawals can be tax-free when used for qualified medical expenses. That is rare. Finally, once those foundations are in place, increase contributions to your 401k, brokerage account, or other long-term investments. The key is this: do not make wealth building complicated before you make it consistent. Most people do not need a secret investment strategy. They need the correct order, automatic contributions, low fees, and enough discipline to let time do its job. Now we need to talk about one of the biggest wealth killers in America: becoming house poor. A house can be a valuable asset, but a house can also become a financial prison. The problem is that many people ask the wrong question. They ask, "Can I qualify for this house?" But the better question is, "Can I afford this house and still build wealth?" Those are very different questions. A lender may approve you for a payment that consumes a massive percentage of your take-home pay. But the bank does not care whether you can still invest. The bank does not care whether you can take vacations, handle emergencies, save for retirement, or leave a job you hate. The bank only cares whether you can make the payment. And that is how people fall into the 46% trap. If nearly half of your take-home pay goes toward housing, your financial flexibility disappears. You may have the granite countertops, you may have the extra bedroom, you may have the nice neighborhood, but you also have pressure. Pressure to keep earning, pressure to avoid risk, pressure to stay at a job you dislike because the mortgage needs to be paid. So ask yourself this: is the bigger house worth delaying your financial freedom by 10, 15, or even 20 years? Is the upgraded kitchen worth staying trapped in a career you hate? Because every major financial decision has a hidden trade-off. And if your goal is to reach $100,000 in net worth, your housing decision can either accelerate the journey or quietly destroy it. The goal is not to avoid homeownership. The goal is to buy a home that supports your financial life instead of consuming it. Now we arrive at the milestone, $100,000. This is where the journey changes. At $100,000, a 7% annual return produces roughly $7,000 in growth in 1 year. That is nearly $583 per month. For doing nothing, no extra shift, no side hustle, no second job, no overtime, just capital working in the background. And here is why that matters. Many people struggle to save $7,000 in a year. But once you reach $100,000, your portfolio can potentially generate that amount on its own in an average year. That does not mean you stop contributing. It means your contributions now have help. You are no longer pushing the boulder alone. The machine is starting to move. This is why Charlie Munger emphasized the first $100,000 so strongly. Because after that point, wealth building becomes less about whether it will happen and more about how long you maintain the habits. If you keep your expenses controlled, continue investing, avoid high-interest debt, and resist lifestyle inflation, the next $100,000 can come faster than the first. Then the next comes even faster. That is compound growth. Slow at first, then steady, then surprisingly powerful. This is financial escape velocity. It is the point where your money begins producing enough momentum that wealth becomes increasingly difficult to stop, as long as you do not sabotage the process. And that is the real lesson. The first $100,000 is not just a number. It is a transformation. You go from reactive to strategic, from trapped to flexible, from consumer to owner, from financial survival to financial momentum. So if you are at zero, your first target is not $1 million. Your first target is $10,000, then $20,000, then $50,000, then $100,000. Track the number. Increase your savings rate. Eliminate wealth leeches. Invest in the right order. Avoid the house poor trap. And keep going until your money finally breaks through financial gravity. That is the path to escape velocity.